Why, hello there. Welcome back to another episode of my Let's Commentary on Castlevania 64. It's been a little while. I had some real-life stuff get in the way, but back to it again. This is the tunnel, which you just saw. I fell down there through a grave, if you remember that I just fought a vampire in the last part. This is actually a condensed video of level 4, 5, and 6, mostly because 5 is really long. And the tunnel is kind of monotonous, as tunnels tend to be. Level 6 is just kind of short and not a lot to see, so I just show you highlights of that one as well. Alright, so we see some rock crusher things here. You don't want to stand under them, obviously. I can't get up anywhere. It's just showing you other stuff that you'll see from a different perspective later on. You see it says normal view there in the bottom left corner. There's actually 3 different camera modes in this game. Specs was mentioning it during the vampire fight, which the camera was obviously bad at following the enemy, and I was kind of just running around. There's actually a battle view where you can make the camera focus on enemies and whatever, but you have to hit a shoulder button to do that, and I just didn't bother because most of the enemies in this game just really aren't that hard. And what do we have here? Some pretty lady hiding out in the water. Hey, maybe you should come over here. Reinhardt is captivated. She has an awful big shadow for such a skinny lady, and giant spider legs. Which is kind of weird and creepy. I don't know if it's more creepy that way, or if it would be creepier the other way around. Like Fry's experience with the mermaid, and at the end they wished that she could have been the other kind of mermaid with the fish part on top and the lady part on bottom. Anyway, there's a dead body. Lots of those around. Especially when you have weird spider ladies. So here's some pretty basic platforming. There's a little bit of that in this level, but a lot of this level is just kind of large hallways, tunnel that you're walking around, and lots of weird turns, and it gets kind of maze-like. But it's kind of just go down one and see what's there, and if it's not the right way, you turn around and go another one. So you'll see some cuts, but it's just a lot of this jumping around. Infinite amount of spider people. You can fight them forever. But they can't catch you if you just keep running, so you really don't have to worry about it. And after a while of doing that, you find this place with some bats. Just chomping on some guy up there. I do a bad job of jumping up here. And you get on this little gondola thing, or whatever you want to call it. The Roman numeral 1. And then you sit as it takes off slowly. For a little adventure that's, I remember it being more. Playing through it again, it was a much shorter adventure. Those don't actually hit you, you don't have to dodge anything. But you see I am ducked just in case, like I get hit by a fireball or something like that. I don't actually fall back. You'll see me get on another one later, and there's a few ghosts or things that might try to hit you, but it's really not difficult. So here I'm up on a, like the thing I tried to jump on at the very beginning of the level. You see I can fall down there to where and then oops. So now here again, that's what save states are for, and then I screwed up again. So third time's a charm. But yeah, you have to hang out there and wait. That's game over screen. Has nice violin music if you sit and wait long enough. Or piano music, I don't remember. One of the actual real songs in this game, besides the ambient stuff that exists in most of the levels. Yeah, so now I'm on Roman numeral 2. Blue 1, we're going faster. Fast enough those guys can't hit me, so it's not an issue. Ghosts aren't really an issue, and now I slow down when I stop. Really, you're on the thing for like 30 seconds. And now we go into more tunnels, and this part's a lot more extensive with a lot more dead ends that are just there to make the level seem big, I guess. I'd really like to see a map of it and what it's like, because it probably doesn't not as complicated as it feels when you're running around in the middle of it. if you know what I mean. If you're used to running around mazes, I guess. There's also several doors in this part that are either sun or moon doors. They make you use your cards for no reason other than to go and get a few items. So yeah, more of these. I fight some of them just because I break up monotony, I guess. Also, they have decent drops, and you can get power-ups if you don't have them. Which you can tell, well, you can kind of tell that my whip isn't powered up now. That's why they take so many hits. And why it looks short. At least I think it gets longer. I'm not even 100% sure about that, but I'm pretty sure it does as you get power-ups. So yeah, I got bored of that. Kept going. There's a few other platformy parts that if you fall in some stuff, you'll die, but it's really not that big of a deal. And bats. And then that's the end. And pretty much that's what the level's like, except it'll take you 15 minutes longer than that to play through it yourself. And that looks like Rosa from the Rose Garden. Who seems like an interesting vampire. Reinhardt has a weird relationship with her, I guess. That he didn't just kill her right away. Now she's just, burning there in the light. Like vampires do. Yeah, even for vampires, I guess. That sucks if you're a vampire. So yeah, we'll see a few more cheesy story sequences later on. If you play as Carrie, the whole Rosa thing is not part of the story, and you have some witch named Actrice that's, I don't remember, sacrificing kids or something so she can live forever, and yeah, kind of a different little story arc going on through the game, but most of the game is all the same other than the tunnels level. You are in the sewers, which I don't really remember because I only played through it like once. You fight a lot of lizard men. I think it's a little more exciting than the tunnels are. And then you go through a tower later on that's, Reinhardt goes through one that's a tower, like a dual tower where he just has lots of fights, and then a execution tower, which you'll see later. And Carrie does a tower of magic and like a tower of science, except they have a little more clever names. I think it's like sorcery and science, maybe, I don't know. So this is the castle center, and actually an interestingly designed level, one of the better ones. It does have a lot of backtracking though. Also has one of the more interesting songs, I think, on the soundtrack. And our motorcycle skeletons again, which have a hard time turning around in weird hallways and kind of messes with them. So yeah, you go down that hallway and you turn right and you come into this room. And this place actually has a lot of different vampire fights. Some of them you have to do every time you go back and forth through the room, which makes it kind of monotonous when you have to backtrack a couple times. If you know what you're doing in the level, you can minimize the backtracking a lot, but you're not going to know that the first time you play. You might be walking back and forth, from the beginning to the end of the level 3 or 4 times. You can see some of the vampires are pretty acrobatic. There's also an observatory that you have a little puzzle we'll see later on, and then you get clues at a few statues around like these. Oh, and this one's crying blood. I only show you because it's just one of the more interesting things that happens, and you fight a little enemy, and for all of this build-up, it kind of is anticlimactic, as you'll see in just a second. Spoilers. It's also the only enemy like that in the game that I know of. So I guess it's nice they did something unique, but it feels like they could have done a little more with that. So yeah, then This is a, gold is color of Venus, second child of sun. Magical Nitro is a not very creative name. So yeah, here's a decent, for what they had to work with on the 64 and the amount of polygons and textures and stuff, a lot of these environments look pretty good. I mean, there's obviously a lot of repetition in the textures and such, but overall it's probably one of my favorite levels in the game just because it has more to it. Not as bland as some of the others, I guess. These are lizard men like Harry would have fought in the sewers. They take a decent amount of hits and they can block with their shield, and if you get hit with a poison, it's like a 25% chance or something of you being poisoned. And you have to fight like 6 of them every time you go through that room, and it's kind of a pain. So then there's these hallways where you have to dodge this stuff. Some of them have more chicken and cure ampules and stuff like that. It's just me being lazy because really, like, you have infinite health in this game and it doesn't even matter. There's some other lizard man that's all like, hey, I'm human. Yeah, so there's 2 different items, and there's a stockpile of them at 2 different places in this level. One of them is right by the beginning, the Mandragora, and it is, you need a key that he just gave me to go back and get it. And then the Nitro is somewhere else in the level. And there's 2 different spots that you have to blow up. One's right outside of there, and one's toward the end when you fight the boss. And you have to get both pieces and take them both to both places, so it can be tedious. And hey, he was supposed to go home when you rescued him in the garden maze. But he's like, why would I try to escape? Reinhardt seems to have a very, one specific goal that doesn't deviate from. Not a lot of nuance. Now Malice is talking all crazy talk here. Reinhardt's confused because he's dense. Obviously, Specs might end up being a little smarter than Reinhardt is. I don't know if he's as snazzy as a dresser, though. This is a little chapel. It's kind of a nice room. Although there's no pews, so I don't know what the vampires do when they go there. So this is the room all the way at the beginning, where I use the key. It's a torture room. There's a fireplace and a big torture thing, and a variety of other things there. And then what we came for. And this you can carry around, no problem. It's not a big deal. Obviously, you can't carry both pieces at the same time. See, I already have the Nitro sitting there. It was in the room where he talked to Malice. And the thing about the Nitro, you'll see it a little bit later on, I show it off. You can't get hit while you're carrying it, or it explodes and you die. Also, you can't jump while you're carrying it, or it explodes and you die when you hit the ground. Yay, so now there's a big hole in the wall, and you can go through it. So yeah, since you can't jump, that also means you can't fall off a little ledge or anything like that, or you'll die. And obviously the game makes you do ridiculous stuff while you're carrying it around, especially the second time. Neptune's blue, yeah. So this is the library. It's nice that they threw this in here. An enormous collection of books. That's what libraries are. So yeah, you do a little bit of climbing, but really some of the hallways or some of the repetitive fights, like in the rooms where you fight the vampires every time you go through it, but otherwise not a lot of enemies in this level. It's just kind of a lot of exploring and platforming, but the fights that you have to do every time are tedious enough that it makes it feel like there's actually quite a bit in this level. So now we have an observatory. Since we've learned all about the different colors of the planets from those clues, because you wouldn't be able to figure it out otherwise, you can put them in the right place, and then it undoes a big seal on a room, a big Coliseum type room at the beginning of the level at the other end of the hallway, which I didn't show you because it just takes a long time to walk across, and there's not a lot of reason to show it to you before you have to go there at the end. But it's obviously something you would probably waste time doing your first time through the level. So yeah, Venus is gold, Mars is red, Neptune's blue. Most people should probably be able to figure that out, but just in case there's statues. And there's no Pluto, which is sad. But I wasn't the one that made that decision. Also, if Pluto's not a planet, I say Europe's not a continent. We should only have 6 continents. But again, I'm not the person who makes that decision. So this is there's a big seal on a cracked wall. You can see I probably already put one of the things there by this point, so I don't have to backtrack and do it later. So now the seal's gone. Yeah, now you can take the nitro there and blow it up and get toward the end of the level. There's actually a giant dead bull in the middle of this thing, and you'd recognize it from like Dracula X and some of the others. There's a lot of, this is like the statue that you saw in the villa, but you do fight. One of them has a sword somewhere in this level too, but a few of the pikemen, pretty classic Castlevania to me, at least since Symphony of the Night. Yeah, you can see blocked there. They block a lot of hits. They don't necessarily seem like they have to be in a block animation to do it, but and they also just disappear very quickly when you hit them for the last time. And hide money in their crotch. Here's some smasher things. Pretty classic Castlevanias. These, I don't know, they do not kill you in one hit. They just do barely enough damage to make you care. Unless you're carrying the magical nitro and then you explode, which happens to be on the other side of this door. Through a little hallway that you didn't get to see because it was the same as the other hallways. So yeah, now you'll see a few creative deaths. They make you walk along this little catwalk that has like corners that collapse if you don't stand on it for too long. And then there's this whole gear thing laying on the ground. Yeah, you'll see here. I mess up. I try to do a shortcut halfway through. Yeah, they make you walk across all this. And then there's lizard men shooting fireballs at you, so you can't stand in the same place. So you have to keep moving. But yeah, later on in that room, there's some gears that are laying sideways on the ground, and you're, yeah, like that. You can't get hit by anything. But anyway, you have to walk around with the gears, and you just have to wait on them and then not get smashed in between them, and it's just kind of tedious. So I didn't show you any of that. Here's an invention room. Dracula working on all kinds of crazy stuff. I think this is like 18th century-ish sometime, I don't know. So a little before Zeppelins and whatever all he had in there. He had like Gatling gun and a bunch of other things. So yeah, there's the giant bowl. Now the seal's gone. I can go blow this up. And you can't use regular nitro because it won't explode strong enough. You need magical nitro. giant crystal that there's actually an elevator somewhere in one of the first rooms of this level as well that doesn't work because it says the magic isn't there, because that's what elevators run on, apparently. And this is a big crystal that will turn it on. Awesome looking lightning effects there. Bet nobody guessed that was going to happen. Also, Reinhardt seems kind of slow to not see the one giant thing in the room that changed since he flipped the switch, but he's already proven himself maybe to not be the sharpest tool in the shed. So this is an interesting boss fight. He's one that you'll see as I hit different pieces. He has a head and a front and a back, and you can hit all three of them individually, and they each kind of have their own health meter that if you hit enough, all the skin will fall off and it won't be bones. And then if you happen to hit the head enough, or even maybe the middle part enough, after their bones, he will just die, even though he could have half of his health meter left. Well, I think if you kill just the back end, he will just drag himself around like he does in other games. And if you try to fight him head on, he'll get rocked pretty hard because you can't dodge any of his attacks. But as long as you just keep running in circles, he can't hit you with anything. Again, I have the holy water in this fight, and it's kind of useless. If I had the cross or the axe, they would both do a lot more for me, but it still doesn't make it hard. So yeah, you run around for a while and hit him a lot. A lot of times you don't actually get an opportunity to hit him because he'll start moving again, so you just run in circles for a while with nothing happening. So yeah, here I would... Oh, there goes his head. And yeah, by now he's all skeleton. And apparently his bones are fragile. So yeah, now I can go back. You know, this is the room with the vampires. I'm headed toward the elevator. You got to go through this room to get there. And there's Rosa again. And I believe that is a sword in her pocket. She's not just happy to see you. Reinhardt blabbing on about Dracula again, how he has to kill him. I really like Death with Wings. I just feel like it gives him a whole lot more presence. So his design in this game is one of my favorites. Because if you think about it, if you look at that picture of him there without the wings, he would look kind of scrawny and dumb. And part of that's just obviously being in 3D. You know, he's just not as intimidating when he's tiny. Doesn't take up a large portion of the screen. But I really like the wings. They're a really good touch. So yeah, it's still not an overly difficult fight. You just have to know when to keep your distance and when you can run in. And like you saw there, holy water does a ton of damage. Also, most of these boss fights, you'll see some of the later ones, like against Death and Dracula. Yeah, spoilers, you fight them both in this game. A powered up whip does 4 times the amount of damage as your regular whip does, which makes some of the fights go really quickly if you actually have a powered all the way up whip. Rose is still being all emo about being a vampire. Which I guess is understandable. But Death is still here, throwing his little stuff at me and being like, hey, I have wings. And apparently he's been hanging out with Santa Claus a lot. So yeah, here's the elevator. Now the magic works. I go up and I go to the next level. I feel like the original recording of that level I have before I edited it down was about pretty close to an hour of what I spent. And that's knowing where to go and doing it in the right order. You see one bridge is broken and one is completed. It's opposite in if you're playing Carrie's story, so she has to go the other direction. And there's me trying to jump over some Medusa heads. I've always wondered if you have a Game Shark or something, if you get over to the other one, if you actually could play the other levels as Reinhardt. I mean, obviously you could just like make it happen, but I don't know if that door actually goes to those levels and you just can't get to it, or if it's just aesthetics. So yeah, here I, a little more careful, decide to bother to whip them all. And this is called the dual tower because you have a few cage fights with different stuff. Again, enemies that you only see one time, like the weird blood guy. And then there's some platforming in between each duel. This is some weird cheetah man. Fight him first, even though I think he's a little more difficult than some of the others. Yeah, his dash thing's kind of fast. You'll see some of the other fights are just... See, even if this is on hard mode and he was doing twice as much damage to me, and I was doing, like, the same, or, like, it just... Well... And Holy Waters just does a lot of damage anyway. So now I have to go, and I jump on top. You see the roof is kind of getting, like, lower and lower. Eventually it will collapse. So each fight has a time limit, although I don't think I've ever had it happen without me just standing around to wait for it to happen. Yeah, so there's lots of spinny things like this, and you can either jump over or slide under, depending on whether it's high or low. And there's some platforms down the bottom that you can do. Get a little bit of stuff. This is another werewolf like we saw at the very beginning. Has this cool trip move and his jump kicks, but since he doesn't jump kick in here and he stays close, he just does this over and over. Just kind of a scrub. Just beats his head against the wall and doesn't learn from the obvious mistakes that he makes over and over and over. And it makes this fight kind of tedious for me, but that's how it works. You just kind of grind it out. Make it happen. So that's the second of the 4 fights. Here's a third one. It's a Minotaur guy who can do decent damage when he charges and hits you. But he just gets mad, runs in a straight line and hits the wall. And as long as you move at all, he'll miss you. So this is the last one of the big were-tiger guy. We also saw one in the first level who can pick you up and throw you and, yeah, do some damage. But again, you can hit them way more than they can hit you. So it's not really fair. Plus you have, by this point, 10 chickens and 10 beefs. There's even other, like, healing kits, which I don't know if I can buy yet or not, because it doesn't matter, but... So you can actually have, like, 30 healing items to give you way more than you'd ever need back. So thank you for watching. We have some great guest commentators on the next few levels. Yeah, and that's it. Sorry it took so long to get this one up.